My name's Trish Roberts and you're watching Faint Signals from Vega. I just wanted to make this quick video. It's about the healthcare debate that's on CNN today in the United States. And Senator Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, he was talking with three other people on the podium about healthcare, and he said something to the effect of, well, what I want isn't going to go through, so, you know, he's sort of bartering about healthcare, even though he believes that the public should have universal healthcare, free healthcare, because healthcare is a right, and it is a right, it's not a privilege. Anyway, so there's a number of people who think that Bernie Sanders is progressive and that he is on the side of the people. Now, I invite you to watch my video previously, prior to this one, which is a question, is Bernie Sanders a progressive or an imperialist? So I won't go into that, but I invite you to look at that particular video that I did. And I go through a list of facts about what Bernie Sanders supports. Now, I realize Bernie Sanders has opened up a dialogue about what the American public deserve. You know, they deserve, you know, free healthcare and other things like that should be rights. But he's been back and forth about healthcare for a while, and I want to point out that during Bernie Sanders' campaign last year, his economic advisor was Dr. Stephanie Kelton, who is a proponent of modern monetary theory. It's not a theory, really, it's just a description of an economic reality. And the economic reality that people don't realize and that Congress deceives the public is that Congress can afford free health care. If you've noticed, they never have any problem being able to spend money on the military. They can, $700 million just recently for the military. You know, billions and billions and billions of dollars are spent on the military, and there's never any humming and hawing about whether they can afford it or whether they'll have to raise taxes, you know, to afford it. Have you noticed that? And there's a reason for that, and that is that federal taxes don't fund spending. Federal taxes don't fund spending. That's the economic reality, and that's why Congress can always find money for the military, because it's just something they can just get like that. And if you look into modern monetary theory, and you can find information about this at neweconomicperspectives.org, that's neweconomicperspectives.org, you can find out all about what this is and why you'll be outraged when you realize that Congress can afford free health care. They can afford to fix all the infrastructure, they can afford free public education, and it has nothing to do with taxes, federal taxes, that you're going to have to, it has nothing to do with increasing taxes on the wealthy or anybody else to fund those things. In fact, the US cannot go broke, and it has not been tied to the gold standard since 1971. So that's the economic reality. And there's all this, we're going to have to raise taxes and we can't afford to, and of course the GOP would rather shoot themselves in the head than raise taxes on the rich or anybody else, right? So, and that's the excuse that the Democratic Party, the DNC, always use, that, the GOP won't let us have, you know, free health care. So, you know, that's the excuse they use, and that's a nonsense. If the DNC, if they had they should all be wearing little logos of insurance companies and big pharma. They get huge amounts of lobbying money from lobbyists to protect the interests of big pharma and to protect the interests of insurance industries, and of course to protect the interest of the arms industry, you know, the Raytheon, etc. They get heaps of money from lobbyists, you know, tens of millions of dollars they receive from lobbyists to protect these interests. So That's why they never have any problem spending money on the military and on bombs and bombing countries. You've noticed that. But they always go to this, oh, well, we can't afford free healthcare. They always say that. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. They can afford free healthcare. They don't want to. And they don't want to because they receive a huge amount of lobbyist money from big pharma and from insurance industries, as I said. And it's not in their interests. It's not in their interests, in their financial, personal interest, each congressman, to promote the idea of that you know, the United States, the citizens deserve free health care and that they can afford it. It's not in their interest to say that, but they can. Congress holds the purse strings, and that's why it's so important for particularly US citizens, but this applies to particularly Western countries, to look into modern monetary theory. Look up Dr. Stephanie Kelton. There's a whole bunch of doctors of economics who are, in fact, there was a recent International Modern Monetary Theory conference, and I invite you to Google that. Oh, sorry, I don't promote Google, sorry. I advise you to search for International Modern Monetary Theory Conference, and there'll be a whole bunch of live streams that have been recorded of that conference, and I invite you to look at all the many doctors of economics who are talking about this particular economic reality that already exists. It's not something that has to be applied to anything. It already exists. It's just that Congress is deceiving the public about their ability to fund free health care. And you can see that very clearly when it comes to the military, because they never ever say, oh, we can't afford this for the military, we can't afford that when we're invading this country, we can't afford those many bombs or that particular aircraft, an F-35 or whatever. Just like that, they can immediately bring it into to being. And that tells you that they can afford free health care. They can afford free public education. They can afford to fix infrastructure. They can afford there can be in existence a federal job guarantee if you want a job. There's a whole bunch of things that you will find if you look into modern monetary theory via neweconomicsperspectives.org or by searching online for International Modern Monetary Theory Conference, which just happened about a week ago. A few days, in fact, and look at the information there. Watch the videos that are posted about this conference, and you'll realize that that Congress, if you're a United States citizen, Congress has been lying to you for a long time about what they can and cannot afford, and that they need to raise taxes and all this kind of thing. Federal taxes do not fund spending. That's something that, just if you don't remember anything else about this video, remember the word modern monetary theory, and that federal taxes do not fund spending, and Congress holds the purse strings, and they can afford free health care. So this whole debate, and I heard Senator Sanders say that he said, you know, something about taxes. And I don't know why he says that, because his economic advisor was Dr. Stephanie Kelton, a proponent of modern monetary theory, and he knows better than to say that federal taxes are required to fund, you know, free health care. You know, he knows better than that. So that's why I wonder. I have to wonder, why do, you know, groups like Draft Bernie for People's Party and all these groups that keep promoting Sanders as a progressive when he really is an imperialist, and I've outlined that in all the bills that he supported in the last decade and a half, and I invite you to watch that video I just did. But why they continue to promote him as a progressive when he knows better than he knows better than to say that you need taxes and you need to increase taxes for free health to give the public free health care. He knows better than that. So why is he saying that if he knows better than that? What kind of a friend is he to anybody who calls themselves progressive, or this Draft Bernie for a People's Party and all these kind of organizations that seem to just turn away from the facts, turn away from the different problems that he has, and there are many. Why do you keep doing that? I have to scratch my head. I'm not a U.S. citizen, but I have a certain amount of, I do live streams on Real Progressives, and that's a page that actually promotes modern monetary theory, and you can find that at Real Progressive on Facebook. I have a reasonable amount to do with that group, and I just find it astonishing that people continue to hold on to Bernie Sanders as if he's some sort of messiah, as if he's going to save people. He knows that federal taxes don't fund spending, and yet he's going along with this and promoting this idea that it does. On a debate in front of on CNN, in front of millions and millions of people, he's basically, I'm sorry, but he's basically lying. So why do you want to support somebody like that who knows better? He knows that federal taxes don't fund spending. He knows Congress can afford free health care for all, for everybody. He knows that, and yet he keeps saying this to people. I bet you if you asked him flat out and he was telling the truth, he would be his economic advisor in his campaign was Dr. Stephanie Kelton, one of the greatest promoters of modern monetary theory. She's just describing an economic reality that exists right now and yet is not employed by Congress. They're not doing what they should be doing. They are in relation to imperialist wars and funding wars, interventions by choice for resources and hegemony in other countries. They can do that easily, right? They're doing what they can do, what they're able to do in that regard, but they're not doing it in relation to the public. And that's because neoliberalism has basically the marketplace now dictates what happens. It's got nothing to do with human rights. Neoliberalism is a cancer, and modern monetary theory is the cure to that. Neoliberalism is a virus that is spread throughout the world. It's spread here in Australia, and I can see that our healthcare is being whittled away. We've got insurance companies here now. We used to have free healthcare, and now gradually it's being taken away from us. And they do that by making the public hospitals, underfunding them, and making it more and more difficult for public hospitals and public services to provide for the public, so that people eventually turn to insurance industries. They do that on purpose to direct people away from public services and to support these corporations. And that's what neoliberalism is. The marketplace dictates what happens in society. It has nothing to do with human rights anymore. So that's how they get rid of these public services. They just sort of underfund them and make them almost dysfunctional so that people will turn to other things in desperation. That's what I happened to do about 20 years ago when I required a minor operation, but it was something that I really needed. And 9 months went by, and this situation was getting worse for me. And my parents ended up paying for the operation. It's nowhere near as expensive, of course, as it is in the United States, but still, that was a couple of $1,000s or something that they had to pay out. And that's when I decided I better take out health insurance, because I didn't ever want that to happen again, you see. And that's what they do. They make the governments that are infected by this neoliberalism cancer, they make the waiting lists for these operations in public hospitals longer and longer if they're not sort of emergency ones. And a lot of what people need aren't emergencies. Of course, there are emergencies, but there are things that we need that are important that aren't emergencies, and they make the waiting list longer and longer, so you get desperate and you end up taking out health insurance. They do that on purpose. So anyway, that's neoliberalism, and that's what's driving these other senators that were on the stage with Bernie Sanders. They should be wearing little logos with, Big Pharma's name on it and insurance companies' name on it. And they probably, if they had all the other logos, they'd have Raytheon, which is an arms manufacturer, and Northrop and Boeing and all of that. They'd have, it'd be like those racing car drivers, covered in logos. And they're making a fortune. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi. She's got like, I don't know, $80 million or $100 million or something. These people are very, very wealthy. And the reason is they get heaps and heaps of lobbyist money. It's a pay-to-play system. Pay-to-play, that's what it is now. Anyway, so if I just want you to think about Senator Bernie Sanders and what he is aware of, which is that, like I say, modern monetary theory. He's had an economic advisor who is a proponent of modern monetary theory, Dr. Stephanie Kelton. During his campaign, he knows all about modern monetary theory. He knows it's a reality. It's not something that needs to be implemented. It exists right now, and that means federal taxes don't fund spending, which means that Congress could afford free healthcare right now, and they are not doing it. And he knows that. He knows federal taxes don't fund spending, and yet he's on the stage there telling people that it does have something to do with taxes. So I'll let you make your mind up about what you think about that. When somebody knows differently and they keep promoting basically a lie to the public, even though they know differently. So that healthcare debate is just a complete fraud and a scam. And they should all be wearing little logos. I don't know what Senator Sanders is doing. He's been, he seems to be wanting to bring people back to the Democratic Party, which is a corrupt corporate war party. He's been, quote unquote, sheepdogging for that party for, he regularly does it. He went on a unity tour with Tom Perez, a corporatist, and he's trying to bring people back to that awful corporate war party, who doesn't give a flying toss about people, about the public. They really don't. And remember this: the lawsuit against the DNC, they admitted that they don't. They decide who they're going to have as their presidential nominee. They've already decided who that's going to be, and it's going to be Kamala Harris. So why anybody would give that party any money whatsoever or have anything to do with them, because they have no interest in the public. But Kamala Harris is, now mind you, and remember this, Kamala Harris is saying all the right things, have you noticed? And she's also a person of color, which they're using as a way of bringing in people of color. She is a woman. So they're appealing to women who think that just because a woman is, just because it's a woman, that somehow it's a feminist thing, that it's a woman, which is a nonsense. Hillary Clinton is a warmonger who was quite happy killing, tens of thousands of people, including in Libya and elsewhere, including women and children. She's no friend of women. She's not a feminist. She's a corporate feminist, and there's a lot of corporate feminists around. She's not a feminist, and neither is Kamala Harris. Just because she's a woman doesn't mean you need to support her. Just because she's a person of color doesn't mean she has the best interests of people of color. It's like dangling something in front of people and making them think. If she was gay, that doesn't mean she has the interests of gay people. Okay, it's just a decoy so that you can be bought in, and that's disgusting. It's disgusting using this to deceive people and make them think that they must have the interests of people of colour at heart because they're a person of colour, or they must have the interests of women at heart because they're a woman, or they must be feminist because they're a woman, or if you're a feminist and you don't support them, what kind of feminist are you? All this sort of nonsense that we hear. So they're using Kamala Harris, and she's saying all the right things, and I can guarantee if she gets in and is president, nothing will change. In fact, she'll be a warmonger like the rest of them. There will never be any free health care. There will never be anything remotely like that. Here's my feline friend. Hi. That's Rooney. He's come to say hello. I think he's a little hungry. Anyway, so that's really all I wanted to say. I hope that you think about that, and please look into modern monetary theory. It's really, for people, you hear people sort of slam it, and you have to wonder the motivations of that, and dismiss it without looking into it. But dismissing it is like saying, I don't believe in gravity. Gravity exists, and you don't have to believe in it. It exists. And the same with modern monetary theory. It's an economic reality, and it exists. It's not something that has to be sought after or invented or applied. It exists right now. And to say, I don't believe in it, and that it's some sort of cult or something like that, is like saying, I don't believe in gravity. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to say. So please look into it. I will leave some links for neweconomicperspectives.org that you can check out. I'll also leave a link to Real Progressives, because they regularly do videos about this, and they're actually going to do a probably in the coming future some sort of book club to introduce people to the basics of it, so that you can talk to others about it and get them to realize what Congress can do and what they're not doing, so that the more people know that Congress is able to do these things and why, then everybody can start asking for it, and you can basically tell them, if you don't implement what you can do already, then we're not going to vote for you anymore. Basically, you can hold their feet to the fire. So that's why spreading this information about modern monetary theory is so important. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Tricia Roberts, and you're watching Faint Signals from Viga. Till next time, bye for now.